Good morning. How's everyone today? Yeah? Big crowd participation day today, so I'm going to be asking your feedback. I have anyone that's been to the States in here? Oh, wow. Okay, East Coast? Ooh, okay, what about Maryland? All right, Baltimore? Yes, these are my cousins probably. I'm probably related to these people. All right, so it's asking for me to log into the Wi-Fi. So let me tell you a little bit about me. So I work for a government agency that's basically one of the largest, and we have over 60,000 employees, and we serve over 180 million visitors to the website. All right. So as I'm logging in and kind of bringing my presentation up, I'm going to ask you, I want to get to know who you are in the room. So let me ask first, and when we get to this slide, we'll just skip over it. How many of you are military brats? Or do you know that term, military brats? Your parents? Okay. Can I get a show of hands? Just like a little higher? Yeah, okay. All right. And then how many of you were dancers as kids? All right. Okay. Any of you childhood actors? Okay, all right. There's a little representation in the room. Okay, artists as children, really like, your artistic type of kids. Yeah, okay. So then let's go back through and kind of look. We didn't have a lot of military brats in the room, but we did have some folk that were childhood dancers. So what do you think those people are good at? Oh, I'm presenting. Okay. What do you think those people are good at? We have to ask ourselves in a way, what are those people kind of good at? And so people who were childhood dancers, for example, should be extremely coordinated. People, for example, who were military brats might be really good at packing or really good at making friends when they get in new spaces, right? So we start to have this conversation about equity. We start to have, what are you looking at? You're looking at everything. You're looking at my notes. And this is the transparency that I'm here to talk about. So what a great illustration. So the first game we're going to play is a game that is going to ask you to talk to your neighbor. Look at your neighbor and say, "You're in danger, girl." Say, "Neighbor, you in danger, girl." All right. So, and the reason why you might be in danger is because this spread of normal is taking over, and we have to show up in spaces as ourselves, right? So how can we start that process? We start to ask each other. I'm having so much fun up here playing tiddlywinks with this. I want you to look at your neighbor and ask and start a desire statement. So you're going to decide, you're going first or I'm going first. You're going to partner up, right? And so one person's going to make a desire statement. You can say, if I could live anywhere in the world, I would live blank. And then the other person's going to answer the desire statement and say, if I could live anywhere in the world, I would live blank, right? And so you're going to do a couple of rounds of that. We're going to do that for about 1 minute. Everyone feel clear? All right, awesome. All right, so go ahead and do that. Start for about a minute and start a desire statement. Respond to the desire statement. You got it. Is that right?
Do you need your notes?
Do I need remote? No.
Do you need your notes at all?
No, I can do it without if I need to. Okay, wonderful. Okay, come back. I know, you love each other now. Okay, so We're going to note our observations, UXers. That's what we love to do. So what did you notice most about play? I'm going to send you to a tool called Mentimeter. All of you have your phones out anyway. It's okay. You've been dying to check your text messages. Go to menti.com and type in that code you see at the top. And then you're going to get a chance to kind of rate some of your observations. If some of you are quick enough, you can stand up and tell me an observation. Quick enough, bold enough. All right. So I want to take this second to give a shout out to my partner who put his life on hold to come out here with me. So that could be great. All right, so if you're done, there's a results link. Not sure if you can see it. It's bit.ly, of course, because why would the link be long? https://3LQXMOH. All right, so you guys can look at the results. All right, and so we're going to take a peek. Did you guys have fun with that exercise? Awesome. All right, looks like you did. All right, so then we're going to take a peek at that. Does some bold soul want to tell me what's at the top of that list in the results? What's rising to the top? You guys are still doing it? Okay, I'll give you another second. Yeah? Yeah? What's rising to the top of that list? Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, let's and while I type it in, let's go ahead and do that.
My bet is going to be the more we play, the more we agree.
Yeah, and we tend to see a lot of that. So let me get there. Let's see if you agree with that. Nice. Anyone else agree with that? You feel like the more you play, the more you agree? Yeah. All right. Let's see what else kind of like rose to the top. I love it. We ended up going analog anyway. We're analog folks in the digital world. And to those guys that got called girls a couple of seconds ago, I'm sorry to those men, okay? I apologize. All right. All right, so then let's move on, and I'll pull the results up in a second. If you pull the results up and you see what actually rose to the top, let me know. Okay, so we did this while we were loading. So let's define space a little bit. That is one of the key observations that we see when we do this. The more you do it, the more you agree, the faster you go, right? And so we do that in our social circles. We do that at work. It's easier to agree. It's more efficient sometimes. There are some other things that happen. Sometimes you develop this muscle of saying, no, well, that's not me. Okay, really? You know, you develop that relationship, and those tend to be the most honest relationships. Those are the people you go to lunch with. Those are the companies you stay with the longest, the managers you kind of get closest to. All right, so we're going to define space. Do you know what a third space is? Raise your hand if you know what a third space is. Okay, good. Not like overly represented. By the way, if I need to speak louder, do this. If I need to, if it's over your head, give me one of those, right? Feedback loop. If it's been going on too long, give me one of those. It's cool. I'm catching it all. I'm used to like being in the web environments, right? Where you're watching emojis and smile. Oh, someone smiled. Alice smiled. Smile back, Alice. Thank you for your smiles. All right. Third space is a hybrid space. It's a conversation, right? It's any juxtaposition of like two spaces together. It can be geographical, right? At a, let's go there. It could be a coffee shop that's also a bank because people aren't coming into banks anymore, so let's give them coffee. Let's give them like really sucky coffee, but like allow them to stay and suck up Wi-Fi. Why not? It's free for us. And let's see, you might have even a country that is a hybrid geographical space. I'm going to speed through these so we can get to the activities more. You might have a cultural third space where you have you have immigrants and first generations. You have people at juxtaposition. So the medical industry went through a cultural third space with Henrietta Lacks's story. Anyone know Henrietta Lacks? Yeah, very powerful story, right? Very powerful story about how the medical industry, they were able to create vaccines and healing from this woman's DNA. But eventually it got like separated from that person. And typically, you know, if you're in a scientist lab, they aren't like, this is Henrietta's DNA. But in this case, you know, the family ended up being like maybe disenfranchised, and they weren't able to see the benefits that the institution that did this was able to see. So in the long run, it mattered. It mattered whose DNA it was, and it mattered to keep that link alive. So that's a cultural third space, right, where like a morph has to happen. So then you have virtual third spaces, and we've got some of these people represented in the room. We're internet people. We don't have to talk about what a virtual third space is. What's a safe space? Have you been to therapy? I love it. And it worked because you told people you went to therapy. Yes. All right, so that's a safe space, clearly. So a safe third space is like, let's create an environment online and in the spaces we create that's like safe. Be yourself. Let's not just tolerate people here. Let's actually make them feel like they belong, which I really felt like I belong here. Thank you, New Zealand. Like, I'm proud of you. Like, my heart is full. All right. And so what we're seeing is like web environments are pulling from what is happening in the material world, and they're having a lot of challenges with it. They're having a challenge with the data that's coming in and making sure it's unbiased. And then you have where these students at MIT discovered the facial recognition software was biased. It wasn't picking up the details of people who had a darker skin tone, so they had to like work through that. That's not just like fixing itself. Who would have thought? All right, so great. We talk about a safe third space, and that's why ain't none of y'all safe, because we're looking for a safe space in digital environments, right? And we have to work to get there. It is not just going to fix itself. So in our world, who knows this logo? Yell it out. Like, let me hear it. Oh, you're addicted. I love it. How many of you got money in your account right now? So they tried to do this thing where they declared itself a safe space. And their timeline was very interesting. They got into some sticky situations. Look at this, such a loving environment. I'm gonna spend 5 hours there and $20, $50 on coffee. So the public came and they saw like a lot of people inside, but then sometimes they were homeless people, but then sometimes they weren't homeless people, and sometimes they were like entrepreneurs waiting for meetings. And eventually the employees got confused and told some people you need to go. And that's probably like looking at the fact without the implications and the cultural, conversations around it. But then they got into trouble about that. So they had to come back and do this training, and they did the training. They got people like, we're on the same page, good, break. And then the pandemic happened, and then Black Lives Matter happened. Have you heard of Black Lives Matter? Right. Very like conflicting feelings and everything has happened there. And so then they told the employees, don't wear Black Lives Matter shirts, like don't. But then other people were like, but you have rainbows in your window. Like, what are you like choosing who you represent? Like Chick-fil-A, right? Like what's happening here? So they got in trouble again. So they said, forget it. Let's just take all of the orders online, which how many of you have to take orders online, like use the app to take orders online? Do you? You guys don't have a whole lot of Starbucks here. And I love that, right? Homegrown coffee. Yes. One in Wellington. I love it. And I'm zooted off of 2 espressos from the thing out front. So thanks, Grace. All right. The third place becomes more abstract, right? So then they need to now talk about that. So let's talk about social justice for a second. I'm going to talk at you just a little bit more before we get back into some engagement. All right, you can hold your neighbor's hand if you want, since you guys are friends now. So social justice ladder. Some of you saw the internet picture of some kids kind of peering over a gate, and they're trying to determine have you seen the image of social justice? Okay. Not overwhelmingly. Okay, great. I recreated it. Hi, I'm a designer. So I call it like rungs to a ladder. That's really how I would like to think about it. And like we start out at this like reality level. And reality is like, it is what it is. Things are black and white, ones and zeros. There's like ones and zeros in the background. And there's a barrier. We know that some people don't have access, but that's reality. What do you want me to do about it? I'm over here like doing life, okay? But what happens is one person gets more than what's needed and people don't have access. Right, that's the problem. Then you have like this empathy level. And so as designers, how many of you are going out and doing, contextual interviews and getting the pain points, right? Every hand? No, it doesn't matter. Okay, just kidding. I love you. Okay, so once you're in touch with the pain points, you start to get a little empathy. Your heart opens. Like, what are these people's problems? Like, what's going on? Like, what's happening here? So you feel bad for them. That was terrible. And there's nothing wrong if you decide to get off the elevator right there. You decide to get off the ladder. Like, I'm just chill out right here at empathy, because my heart is open. But there are other rungs you can achieve, and we're eventually trying to get to social justice, which is at the top of the ladder. Don't stand on the top. I think that's the thing. Don't stand on the top of the ladder. All right, equality level. So then you have equality where it's like, well, we're all the same. We're looking at people on an eye level. So when you go out and do a contextual interview, you can end with this, I see why they saw that way, and I would have done the same thing. And you tend to do that agreeing thing with the exercise we just did. And that's kind of around equality level, but you tend to be in a competitive space there, right? You're like, well, they got this, but I've got this, but we're racing, so I'm not even going to help you, but you're good, yeah, you look good. We treat everyone the same. Let's apply this fix across the board. How many of you have heard, let's apply this fix across the board? Those people need training, like everything's a monolith, right? So then you have equity level. So then you're starting to get into a space that says, these people have a strength, that is a strength, that is something where there's a need, or this person's new, they have no idea what's going on, we need to pick their brain and understand. You start to think about like something higher than just like we're all the same. You start to say what's missing, what do we do well, and kind of get a little bit more granular in that process. And eventually you get to, okay, I'd like to take a little bit of a deep dive. Go with me on a road to equity. We always have this conversation about need-based aid when we talk about equity, but I've redefined the equity. I'm a designer. I'm gonna break it and recreate it, right? So I have this definition of equity that says to recognize the value in something that hasn't widely been recognized as valuable yet. Okay, so in this image on the left, and this is Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. He did a great job. On the left, you have everyone would like to ride a bike. Everyone cannot ride a bike, or it's not the best fit. So then you customize the bike. That's what you see on one side. But then on the other side, we're kind of like, I've remixed it, I've tricked it out, where, you look at that person that's in the front. They have the lowest sight line. So you can rely on that person because of their sight line. No one else has that perspective that they have. You can't be over here assuming what the sight line is. Why would you do that? That person naturally is in the role to do it. That person is naturally maybe because that person's younger. I'm saying maybe they have a wider imagination. I have the woman in the middle. I'm saying she has probably the broadest concerns and sensibilities. A lot of times that's the case of the woman on the team, right? Then you have the tallest person. They have the highest line of sight, like unobstructed. You only want that type of advice from that person. Why would you have someone else guessing what's happening over there? So you have to talk about a strength-based equity to supplement the need-based equity. Identify the need, but then move on. This is a journey map. And because of time, I'm going to skip to the end and say what happens in the beginning is an organization observes an imbalance. And I shared this at my organization to around 600 employees, and it was a really great start to a conversation. Then you get to the point where they decide we need to broaden the door to get people in, but they aren't necessarily able to advance. And so once they aren't necessarily able to advance, you have a few things happening. That person that got in the door because the door was widened, they maybe feel a sense of, they could say, let me sit in the back and kind of not rock the boat. They could have imposter syndrome. Maybe the workforce is a little bit resentful, like the door wasn't widened for me, I got in the hard way, right? That kind of equality mindset. So you have all these feelings going on, and then the organization may take a retention hit because people are feeling, I don't think I was appreciated. What's so great about that type of group? Right? So you have all these fallouts. So you supplement that need-based equity. I'm sorry to sing in your ear. You supplement that need-based equity with the strength-based. So that same thing happens, but then you start to identify what are the strengths of these groups. You start to put it in your job descriptions. You start to build a culture around it in the organization. And you can start from zero, right? Sometimes it's a skills assessment. Sometimes it is a peer recognition is something we implemented. So I've recently moved into the human capital space, but I'm applying UX methods there. Am I going too fast? Am I okay? All right, thanks. All right, so then towards the end, you start to see this shift where people feel like I can be a whole person here. I can be myself, strengths and weaknesses, if that's what you want to call it. You increase empowerment around diversity so that people who never thought of themselves as diverse start to go inside and look at how am I unique and start to look at life from that lens. That's why ain't none of y'all safe, because you all have that lens. You've just been maybe neglecting it, or we've learned code switch so well, they're fix, I'm going here and let me yeah, that's how I need to be there, and then I'll be good, right? But then unfortunately what the person is getting on the other side is that mask, right? Not heart level. So let's come from behind the mask, because that's what's happening now. We're going to a transparency environment. Okay, I'm sorry, it was like a moment. I had a moment with you guys. All right, so then justice. Justice is what we're trying to achieve. And the best thing I could say is we're there already. Like how can we be present? How can everyone just be there? There's no elevator ladder to get to it. It's just there. It's Mecca. It's paradise, right? And then you start to think about how do we show others the way. So great, that was a little ride. So let's talk about UX now. This is a UX conference, and we are UX folk. Very simple process outlined here, specifically in an agile environment. You define the finite, like what is the budget? Who are our resources? What is our team? You start to do contextual research where you go out and find the pain points. You sit with people, right? You see their like pictures of their kids at their desk, maybe. You know, they have a timer. Why do you have a timer? I don't know. And then they're okay, move on. And then you create. You go back and you create from this space, and then you test it, and then you test what you created, you assess it, right? Very simplified, right? Not, the presenter before did the deep dive of how it can get so intricate, and it was very good too. Then let's look at the social justice ladder that happens to line up very nicely with that very simple process, where defining the finite is just about reality. It's wrong one. Then you get to contextual research, empathy. Right? Easy. Then you're creating, that's equality. So this is what happens when you create. You're not creating from I'm helping these people. You're creating from the I see you, eye to eye level, right? You're right here with me. I see your pain, right? I see you, how you feel. And then you test it, and that's equity. That's like, did this provide value for someone? And then finally you assess your findings, and that's justice. Did I do this issue justice? Did I do that problem justice? So, game time. I need 4 volunteers. Come on up. We don't have time. We don't have time. Come on. No, come on. Come on. Be young at heart. You have this moment. Doing it. Love it. Here you go. Awesome. Thank you. Cool. You guys are cool. Thank you, loves. Thank you. All right. Yes. Cool style, my friend. All right. So they have instructions. All right, so let's talk about the standard of justice for a second, right, while they're prepping. The standard of justice. What happens is that we start to create a status quo and a line where people need to, interact with us in order to be able to, we have this line of justice where people need to sort of interact with us, right, this like squiggly, right? And then what happens is that as we look at that squiggly line, we start to make people be at certain places in order to interact with our application. Right? Okay, exercise over. Okay. Did you look to the right? Yeah. Some people have great eyes. They're like, one eye was here, but they were like, what the hell's going on? Thank you, loves. Thank you. Give them an applause. They are actors. Thank you. Thanks, guys. All right, awesome. All right, so that's just to demonstrate this, something that you might do on a project team, for example, right? You change the stage. They're like, well, this is the user, and this is the user we're focused on, and this is the user that's bringing in the most money, and this is the user that has the most traffic. And they're not thinking about corner cases that actually have access to an untapped group or access to an untapped feeling or pain point. So you change your stage. You just do it kind of like that. Don't plan a coup, but sort of plan a coup. All right, but really what I was saying here is that we create this sort of status quo line. People need to have a cell phone to interact with us, so they need to have internet access, so they need to have an email address, so that if they forget their password, it comes back to them. So we create like you need to be here. But what's happening in society now is like we have to be at the full transparency. Everyone doesn't have cell phones. At my agency in particular, people may not. They may be at a certain stage in life where they don't have access to certain things, right? So how do you think about that holistic life journey for that customer? All right, so then on Agile teams, let's get to some kind of like tactile for a second. On Agile teams, ways that you can implement all of this wonderful theory, right, that I'm giving you. Call your own meetings with just the necessary people, right? 3 Amigos teams, some of you guys doing 3 Amigos? Just you and the 3 Amigos. Of course, the Scrum Master wants to dictate when you all meet. That is what they do. They're coordinating you. Be coordinated. But then also when you really need something, just do that one-off, right? People don't recommend, suggest. I recommend this, I recommend that. Not like, I think this might be a good idea. Or, can we try this, right? There's something about that says, okay, that's not as important as what we're doing right now. But I recommend, says I'm coming from a viewpoint. Remember the people on the bikes? I'm coming from a vantage point and I see something. You can't be unsure about what you see. Are you sure about what you see? I can't hear you. Are you sure about what you see? Are you sure about your senses and what you hear? Yeah, that's what you're coming to speak from, what you see and what you hear. So find another way to like apply this on agile teams, find the data and find out how to back up what your hypothesis is. Back it up, find something somewhere. It might be a group, it might be anywhere, right? I'm going to be bringing up New Zealand a lot. Okay. Choose your battles. Sometimes we get into these battles with the product owners and it's not really worth it. It's about moving a period. And it's like they keep moving punctuation. Sometimes that happens, right? They keep moving this, they just keep saying they want the button somewhere else, right? And that's not the conversation I want to have. Just do it, right? Like be friends with the product owner. I don't know, one-on-one. Okay, so then, but when you have something big, they respect you, right? Because you didn't fight them on every small thing. So on the screen, how can you apply this? Run completely through each user case, right? I have an example of that here where there's the passport website, for example, doesn't have a use case for I need to update my passport as well as renew it. I need to like update some language on it, like there's something misspelled, as well as renewing my passport, right? So they don't have that. So they don't have it on the website, so guess what? You're out of luck. You need to like go in or something like that. All right, so let's go back for a second. And then let's see, make personas that make sense, right? A lot of us are like making personas that don't necessarily, we can't implement, or it's just like pretty pictures. Capture risk and look for trends. Look for trends in that risk and make decisions that could have business implications. So for example, you're trying to convince a product owner of something, you are going to take what you see and what you find, but align it with the business goals or align it with someone said, like, this is important, right? And then the more you do that, you make it like, I'm on a team with you. Believe it or not, sometimes they don't think you're on a team with them. The developer and I think Gabe talked about it yesterday. It's like, it may or may not be a team. I don't know if you're a team member. You keep going against what I'm saying. You have to let them know you're on the team with them first, right? Look for bias in language and placement. Again, your lens, something only you can see or hear. It's okay. Just let them know. And then watch the internet. Watch an internet novice navigate your screen. Right. That's eye-opening. All right. So. Be yourself, but develop yourself. Like you are great as you are enough, but also like be working on it too. So like to continue to widen your lens. What is your strong point as a UX person? How many of you are like working on what your strong point is within being a UX person? Anybody? Okay, yeah, that's something to do. It's not just that I am a UX person, I am a UX analyst, I'm a UX researcher, I'm a UX designer. You even need a strong point within that. I'm really good at seeing this. What is your vantage point in that line of people on bikes? That's how you make yourself, like they don't hold a meeting without you. That's what you want. All right, are you code switching for safety or for expediency? It's fine to code switch, it's a tool in your tool belt, like don't show up to fix things without a screwdriver, what's that thing called? But at the same time, be able to put it down and be able to be with people and be your authentic self, still reach it, right? Let your ego be a room in your home that you can move in and out of, I think is how it's said. Are you allowing different for your friends, for your coworkers, for your office space? Are you allowing different? Because if you aren't allowing different, you aren't allowing that part of yourself that's unmasked to belong. You're only allowing masked me to belong. That's why ain't none of y'all safe, okay? Avoid burnout. Please don't burn out. Don't burn out on us, and work your question muscle. So one thing we did with my project team, they were working on like 4 or 5 different teams. So it was 4 designers, and like let's work on our question muscle. So I created this game where one player, it was like one lead or example, thinks of a person, place, or thing, and then each person gets to ask a question and make a guess. So is it red, right? Is it a house? You could, and so the way that game went is people were starting out saying, is it a house? Is it California? Is it, a language? Like making this really finite guess, realizing you haven't built the groundwork to get to that level of guess. I love your ambition, but you just jumped out of like nowhere. Okay, and you could have been right? That's a lottery bet right there. But how do you build the groundwork of questions so that you actually are getting, when you make a guess, closer to what the actual thing is? Simple game, right? Very analog here. All right, so I think that's where I want to go with it, how you can apply it. And in the end, what it comes down to is just making sure that you apply this in your everyday life and you be yourself. And so I'm not going to leave you on the note to say, ain't none of y'all safe. I'm going to leave you on the note to say you are safe. right? Ooh, smooth down your neighbor and say you are safe. Thanks for your time.